My name is Miguel da Silva. I'm from the Philippines originally, and I came to Barcelona in 2018 to do my master's program, the International MBA, with the EAE Business School. I had always wanted to do an MBA. I always had that in mind, right? But when I first graduated from my school, I graduated back in 2012, I got also the suggestion that, hey, don't rush into studying some more. Try and maybe get some business experience first and try to see, what it's like in the real life, quote unquote, before you get your MBA experience, right? So I ended up working for Coca-Cola, but rather one of the greatest, I guess, most famous companies in the world, right? And that also gave me that perspective of how a business operates on that scale. Okay, and I'm always forever very thankful to Coca-Cola. It's just that, how do I put this? Well, I also rose very fast. So in Coca-Cola, just some background, I started as a financial analyst, but then I eventually moved on to a sales manager and then to a marketing manager. So I actually had the opportunity to see, the company from a very wholesome perspective, holistic perspective. And I grew quite fast. I became one of the youngest managers. But I guess also part there is a bit of a burnout, maybe, wherein at my last position, because of moving so fast also, maybe, to be honest, maybe a lack of experience, like being a marketing manager, I had some conflicts with my finance training, and there were things that made it more difficult for me to work at the start. So from a very, how would say, like a promising trajectory, young rising star type, I also ended up having certain months where it was very difficult for me and I was almost put on probation, to be very fair, no? And that was the time when I got thinking, well, things aren't going well. And I tried to adjust, but it's still not working. So, hey, maybe instead of just saying I failed and crying about it, maybe I'll think of this as a sign, and as a sign to say, hey, I think it's time for you to take that break, but not just a break as a vacation, but rather to get a new perspective on life and try and change things up. Maybe you can go for that MBA you always wanted, right? So I decided to do that, and additionally I decided to do it in another country, and that was something like a start fresh kind of situation. So I took the leap. Within the same year, I think I decided to leave Coke at around maybe July. And then by by October rather, I was here in Barcelona doing the MBA. There's two parts to this. I have to talk about my original, like when I was a college student thinking about why I wanted to do an MBA. Obviously, that's changed a lot over the years, but like there's two perspectives to that. So let's begin. So first of all, this is very funny, but like, in the Philippines, academically, we're very competitive. I went to one of the top schools in Manila, called Ateneo. My mother's from there, my aunt's from there, our circle of friends are people from there. So there's this certain prestige going to that school, and with it comes a certain competitiveness, right? And all throughout, we were taught to really do well in school, to do well in our grades, and to push ourselves, no? And I mean, not without reason, not just because my parents came from very poor backgrounds, and getting good educations and doing well there we're able to bring them or bring them to where they are now and to give us, their kids, better lives. So they said, you guys also have to focus on that and work hard and study hard. And so always the trajectory was something like that. I mean, I went to the honors section, I took an honors program in college, things like that. So naturally, something that continues at that point in time, I was thinking is an MBA, because then you get another title and you get better education, right? Obviously, that did change throughout the years. I think, especially with my experience in Coke, I start to also get this thing where is one, yes, it would be like the kind of, not a total vacation where I'm not being productive, but at least a change in scenery to refresh myself. But two, also to kind of take a step back, and be in this environment, or give me something where I could look back on my professional life. What did I do wrong? What did I do right? Is this normal? Do other people have the same experiences? Do they have different experiences? What would other people have done in the situations I had? And I thought, well, an MBA would probably have that, because then I'd be with a group One was on my peers, the classmates. Maybe I'd have a group of like-minded individuals who had their own stories to tell and who could give me that sort of step back perspective to look at my own story and realize things and maybe learn things and process it. And two, of course, also the group of teachers, and see people who could share their experiences with me. Some teachers probably who didn't take a corporate route, whilst other teachers who ascended high in corporate ranks. So I would like to really have gotten all those. And I think it would be, every time people struggle in life, more questions come. So I wanted answers to these questions that I couldn't get alone. And I started to see that the MBA would be a good environment for me to meet people or to get to know new ideas that will help me answer my own questions. Completely. Like, there was a lot of introspection. Maybe that's also a personal trait. I'm very introspective, but like throughout the MBA, every time we had a group work, every time I was answering a question of the teacher, every time I was doing an exam, I was really picturing myself, apart from what the teacher or what my peers would say, if you did good or you did bad in this question, this exam, this presentation, I would imagine what would my former boss say, Like, it really was with me throughout the whole MBA experience, no? But I think one of the biggest changes or biggest benefits the MBA gave me was, well, the reason I can answer all these questions nowadays is because I went through that whole MBA experience. I did eventually meet people with similar experiences, with different experiences, people with the same perspective or opinions as me, and people with other perspectives and opinions as me. And through that, I was able to start looking back on what I did and start understanding, what I did, not just what I did wrong and right, but also kind of like why I did them wrong and right. And I think one of the biggest realizations I had when I look back is, and you saw me, like I'm very proud of Coke up to now. Even up to now, I don't drink Pepsi at all. I still market Coke a lot because it's a great company. They sent me all over the world, so I'm forever thankful. But if I compare what I do now today, and I guess that's a topic we'll touch on later, where I'm working with my own startup, and the stress or what I stress about today versus what I used to stress about in Coke, I realized that I care much more about what I do today, right? The MBA was able to show me that there is another route to things. There's another way to do things, and there's another way to be passionate about your job. Like, if you asked me in Coke, I would have said I was passionate about my job. And I think from hearing me talk about Coke, I could make someone believe I was passionate about it. But now if I compare the passion I have now versus what I felt when I was doing my job or responsibilities in Coke, there's a marked difference. And I don't think I would have ever realized that if I hadn't gone abroad and if I hadn't taken an MBA. MBA is a lot more current or a lot more up to date about how is business in the world today. So, usually in school, I can't speak for other countries, but at least in my experience, we were taught a lot of cases, a lot of very traditional things. Economic theories or business theory that's been established for decades, right? And you always look at examples of companies. You talk about Apples of the world or Microsoft or Sony or Honda, well-established companies, and how they did it back in the, 1950s, 1960s, or even including before that, to bring their companies to where they are today, and that's very valuable insight. But at the same time in the MBA, we started taking cases on things like Uber, things like Airbnb. Like here in Spain, we took cases about Glovo, right? So businesses that, yeah, they have some sort of success. Obviously, Uber is such a household name nowadays. Airbnb is such a household name. Everyone uses. But at the same time, they don't have decades of success and longevity unlike other companies. So these are companies that still have a looming question on, will they survive, right? So we were taking cases that were a lot more current. We talk about how things move a lot faster today, and companies have to adapt to this. Maybe to just be a bit more specific, one example is if you take the concept of lean design. Old companies like if you're a car company like Ford, you would perfect your model for months or even a year before you release a new car model. You do everything, you do all the testing internally, and you wait between models to release. You wait 1 year, 2 years to release the new one because you want to make sure it comes out perfect. And then we find out that the MBA said, no, but look at the companies today. What they're doing is releasing a minimum viable product, something that at least works with the minimum part of their proposition, even if it's not totally perfect, even if it doesn't have all the features they want, but they're releasing it so that as they develop it, they're also getting feedback in real time from actual users and consumers. Things that traditional companies with the traditional method might miss. By the time a new Ford model comes out, if someone's gonna complain about it, Ford can't really change much. Unlike now, you have Tesla, which is the new popular counterpart, and Elon Musk. I mean, whether you agree or disagree with him, one thing Tesla does is update constantly their models, something that traditional car companies don't have. So coming to the MBA was nice to see that whole perspective of, okay, you were taught this, and that's valid for that time, but times are changing, things are moving faster, so there are new companies doing it now. And are they doing the right thing? Will Tesla be a success as big as Ford? We don't know yet, but we have the privilege to be in an era where we're gonna watch this unfold. So I really like that a lot about the MBA, and that was kind of the unlearning I had to do. Like nowadays, I can't run a business like the old successful businesses were. I can't run a business like the way Coca-Cola grew itself. Now you have to look and acknowledge the trends of today, the realities of today, the technology of today, and well, the people of today who are always constantly changing what they want, no? Honestly, coming into this, my plan was to come to Barcelona, do the MBA, and go back home. And my plan, I remember I did have this conversation, like a random conversation back then, and when I was working in Coca-Cola, and we were talking about entrepreneurs, and I was one of the ones who said I could never see myself being an entrepreneur, starting my own business. No, the track was always corporate, because especially in a country like the Philippines and the background my parents came from, obviously going the corporate route is the more secure or stable route, because things are more certain there. I mean, you do find a job, apply for it, do well in that, then you can go home and continue your routine, and you're pretty much stable, no? Whereas obviously entrepreneurship, you always hear one in how many companies succeed, 1 in 10, you know, or your first 5 companies that you start up, only one will really work, no? So there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear if you go into entrepreneurship. And coming to the masters, I had the same thought, but a few things started to change as I took it. Okay, so one was, well, I started to see what I mentioned in the last program, where how these new businesses are evolving, and I started to think to myself like, man, it would be kind of cool to actually be at the forefront of that, to be the one also navigating these stormy seas, if I may say it that way. And 2, the thesis was that we had to also act as if we were making our own business. So I started dabbling into that and doing the thesis, writing the paper, making the presentation. It started to make me think more, hey man, it's actually pretty cool to be the one running the reins of your own business, no? Like making these decisions, because I felt a lot more connected. Like I felt like, okay, even just then in that simulated thesis scenario, like the decisions I make are gonna directly affect how the company does, no? Unlike if you're in a corporate giant, if it's already stable, sure, you can do a good job, but also tomorrow, probably if you leave, most likely that company is going to continue on without you, no? So I mean, it's not bad, but as a matter of preference, I started to gravitate towards more of these decisions which I really felt were connected to results that I could see right then and there, no? And maybe the next step was right after graduating, I was approached by a friend of mine, literally a roommate of one of my close friends from the masters, who I had also met, and I'd met him only during parties. We would go drinking, you know, fun things. We never talked seriously there. But then he approached me and said, hey, you know, I, along with another guy, we want to bring his thesis from paper to reality. And when we were talking about or considering the other potential people we could invite to help us make this a reality, we thought also of you. All right, so here's the business, this is the idea, this is the proposal, would you want in? And there I was, you know, because I at that point I had been looking for internships in Barcelona, or even applying to a few companies, but I also found that I wasn't really doing it with much motivation. I wasn't like, oh, I have to find one, but I do want to try and stay. But the actual finding the business part was like, yeah, but none of these companies really make me feel like, oh, I really want to be a part of this. No, I didn't have that that fire in me. And then they come with this proposal, and I think, I think this one I could commit to. And that was in the summer of 2019, and now we're in 2023, and here I am now, 4 years with this business. The simple answer is yes. Obviously, it was in the master's program of EAE that I started telling you that I started getting the idea of being an entrepreneur. An additional thing there was, apart from the core of the master's program, they also gave us the chance to do some minors, and the minor I took was entrepreneurship, so that also helped spark that. Plus, after graduating, when the three of us decided to make a project, there was an incubator by the school which we applied to and got in, and helped us really kickstart the project. It was one of the very first things where we actually put Jibu, the business, on paper and started to bring it out to reality. So literally, this is a project born in EAE. It was the thesis of my friend, of my partner in EAE, and then the first incubator we ever attended together and worked on it was in EAE. And then, well, even more tangible nowadays is actually one of our very first clients is EAE, right? And so they've been very supportive of that. I mean, they're paying clients. We have what we do is actually we make drinking fountains, modern drinking fountains, and the school didn't have, now they have. So all the students, I hope, are thankful to have quality drinking water there. But apart from that, they also invited us to a lot of events, gave us a lot of exposure, and helped and really helped see us through. Like the mentors we had from EAE, the teachers I had there, I was able to contact them again and talk with them. The other contacts I met in EAE, my other classmates and everything, I still keep in touch with them, the ones that stayed here and the ones that went home. And some of them have also helped invest in the business. So I wouldn't lie that without all this, I don't think we would be where we are now. All right, so we're definitely very thankful to EAE for these experiences and the help. I am very much in agreement with the trajectory of having actual work experience, because otherwise you go and, I mean, it's not wrong either. I mean, if you really want to go right after graduation, it's fine. It's just that to you it might feel like an extension of school, because everything is very theoretical. Whereas if you actually go through real work, you come to the masters with questions in mind, and answering these questions are one of the biggest learnings you can get from an MBA, right? So I do definitely recommend that. I mean, come with business experience. With EAE itself, again, very interesting, because it's one of the MBAs that gives you the option to do two trajectories, right? As you go in, you can choose, do I want to focus on corporate life, or do I want to focus on entrepreneurial life, right? So I like that they give it very clear from the beginning, and depending on what you choose, even if you're like me, who at the start, I was uncertain, but I said, let's test this entrepreneurial life, let's take the entrepreneurial minor, right? Just to see. I mean, you can still take it and decide, maybe I want to go to corporate in the end, right? But the point is, they give you that choice, and they give you the exposure, and they give you the contacts to be able to maybe make a better informed decision, right? Rather than at the start when you don't know anything, choose corporate, entrepreneurial, I don't know. But now after going through EAE and the masters, you have a good choice. And the other thing is, well, I also want to be thankful, like EAE, I noticed maybe versus university, and I do love my professors from my university, where I had some very good professors who I still keep in contact with today. But EAE, I noticed, also had a very specific focus on bringing in professors who've had very hands-on experience in the fields they teach. So I know, I mean, I'm biased to entrepreneurship, obviously, but my entrepreneurial professor there was someone who had made his own business. So you ask him about things, and he tells you, yeah, the theory is good, but this is the result. I mean, just focus on this. So these were things that gave me more confidence to listen to what they were teaching me, because I knew it wasn't just all in theory, but no, there was always a tinge, or it was always tempered by actual experience. So that one was a nice focus that I have to say thanks to EAE for.